Hello, Jacob.
Hello.
Okay, so I've got it recording. Um, let's get recording. Not sure how to do this side by side. Oh, there we go. Last time I had it switching uh views, but okay. Hello. Oh,
Hello.
so I have Jacob on again. We had a talk a couple of weeks ago. I think it was like a couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but yeah. So I mean, we could like pick up where we were going from from last time. I think it got like pretty. I don't know. It seemed like it was getting pretty like esoteric last time, but um,
Well, I remember at the end of it, you said nuclear, and I said I had to think about it, and I did. And yeah, I think the word is atomistic. Um, and it's funny, I just started reading Ian McGilchrist's book, The Master and His Emissary, and I'm like only a few pages in, but he talks about how he thinks that um, generally the left brain views things in particulate and in, just pieces of it.
mhm.
And he used the word atomistic, so that reminded me of it. And I think, his whole thing is that our society is being kind of overrun by the left brain, and the right brain um, isn't getting its due.
Mhm.
And so he thinks that that's the problem,
Yeah,
right? We're becoming too too particular. Yeah, I guess the word is.
yeah. I think like I think it was Eric Neumann. He made kind of the same thing where it was like, oh, the society has it's neglected the artists, I guess, and the the creative um, impulse of mankind, which has been the um, fuel for every great breakthrough, um, like of society, of like throughout history. Um, but it's also one that has been like it's very much needed to be. It's needed to be needs to be cultivated, basically,
Yeah,
and helped.
strangely, I think in some ways our society is just not making a lot of connections that it needs to, but in other ways making a lot of connections, which so there are the people who think that social media is the problem because people are connecting to each other too much and information is traveling too fast. Um, and in some sense, we're not making the connections that I think we should, right? Um, like I've noticed when we chat with video,
Mhm.
and we can talk to each other, and even just audio, it's very different from text. First of all, because I think people don't pay as much attention when they're reading text. Like, before you respond to someone on Twitter or Facebook, I don't I don't think people take the time to listen and understand as much, because when we're talking, right, you have to listen while we're communicating. And our facial features and, like, how we move our head and things like that, they help us connect a lot better. And then, so when we talk, it's it's a collaborative process, and it's not as antagonistic, I think. And I think that that might be why Discord is just so much better, and like conversations like these are so much better than everybody typing. And you know, sometimes when we're in Discord, I want to say something, I don't want to interrupt, I'll put it in the text chat,
Right.
because that way I'm not stopping anyone else from having their say, but I'm also getting the opportunity to give, have my say. But when
Yeah.
everybody's typing, there's just so much volume of material that I think I think a lot of people just e- either don't read or speed read through things, right? And
Yeah.
that makes for
It's
much poorer communication.
yeah, yeah, and it's sort of a necessity when you have a lot of uh a lot of text, I guess. Is you kind of have to uh speed read and get the the gist. And it does get clunky when there's just a lot of information. Definitely, definitely. Um, yeah, and I think with text, it's easier to um it's odd. It's easier to look at strands of info, or differentiate between different aspects of um an idea or something like that's one advantage or one thing I've noticed in in text that happens a little bit easier.
Right. And you have the time to sit there and type it out and think it out and maybe go back and edit, right?
Right.
And go back and read what people said. Like if I miss something in conversation, like it's gone, right? And sometimes, well, some people feel comfortable enough to ask you to say things again, but I think a lot of people just like nod along and try to wing it and try to, So having that text there, and then sometimes, even in text, you will say to someone, hey, go back and reread what I wrote. And one thing that I've noticed now that I've done video conversations is I will go back to listen to like the conversation I had with PVK. I've listened to it several times, um, to better understand what his responses were, but also even to remind myself of what I was thinking. You know, that conversation in retrospect, like how I remember it, is not the video at all. There were places where I was talking about one thing, and I think PVK was actually talking about something else, and we weren't really connecting. I mean, that was the first time that we ever really spoke to each other. Um, so it's,
Yeah.
there's also the question of familiarity, right? The two of us talk a lot,
Mhm.
right? Um, so I think there's already some degree of understanding
Yeah.
that, just somebody out on the internet watching this who has never spoken to either one of us. um, Not that I know that there's so many people are going to watch that, but like, uh, somebody who comes into this discussion fresh will not have that context and that background.
Right. Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was thinking about that. Yeah, and I think that does it makes a difference for I mean just emotionally, but also just like there's a and I think this happens with people there's a part of the brain where it's like, "Oh, um there's this point that's there that we can talk on. There's that there's yeah, yeah, just different spark points. definitely that I guess you don't have with people you're just just getting to talk to.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, yeah, 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 and like, yeah, I think that's definitely like important is the familiarity part. Um, okay, um, so do you think that being familiar with people's like um ideas, right? Like Paul's has like I don't know, are there any like ideas that we've had that have like that you've explored like uh deeper since before? Because I know when we were talking about well, I think this familiar okay, so I think this familiarity thing is something that I've like also like thought about for a while, and just like the effect it has on your like emotional comfortability when you're speaking to someone. And I think like that's yeah, I don't know what else to say about it besides like it's important for relationships in general.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason Paul says, he doesn't want the Discord growing too fast, because he wants to see the community kind of coalescing, and it is. Um, and there. So we're. I think you were there. The Friday before last, when there was that, after the discussion, after Paul had left, this guy came in, and at the time I didn't think
Ah,
he was trolling. I thought he was genuinely confused. But now, after finding out that he was just basically trying to get business for his YouTube channel, I kind
interesting.
of feel he was trolling. Um, and what Paul Paul mentioned, he kind of felt like there were the community antibodies, right? And the guy was calling us a cult, which is silly.
Mhm.
But
Well, I mean, if you know Paul, that's like that's just his like his personality like does not like uh, allow for like it's just the community is so like I guess there's a wholesome aspect or like or something. I don't think Paul could succumb to that, and like I think people have and I don't think the people in the community could, but that's
but yeah, but I think what he was picking up on was that we are a community, right?
Mhm.
When he, I mean, first of all, what he said about Paul speaking nonsense, like, I am the king of calling people out on speak, you just using big words and touchy feely things, and then you know taking. So I was listening to a debate between John McWhorter and Michael Eric Dyson. Do you know who Michael Eric Dyson is?
I know, yes, I know who Dyson's a very he wasn't he like very like he seemed like just emotionally like uh I don't know if manipulative's the right word. He seemed like uh yeah, a Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. He debated with Jordan Peterson before, and now he was debating with John McWhorter. And somebody in the comments, I couldn't keep on listening after a little while. Someone in the comments said, um, John McWhorter takes difficult ideas and conveys them simply, and m- Dyson takes uh, takes really simple ideas and tries to make them sound profound. Especially like he he some he sounds like he just took a dictionary and put it in a blender, and he's just
Right.
throwing words around. And I haven't caught him completely misusing a word yet. Sometimes he uses a word. It's not exactly like what really gets me is when people use big words because they're trying to sound like and they don't understand the words,
Right.
right? And they just use the wrong big word. Like I try to
Right.
stay away from big words as much as I can.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but some people like that's their whole shtick, and Dyson's whole shtick. Anyway, so the guy who was
I see the
claiming that
I wanna, like, I see the temptation to use, uh, a big word, like, and it fills if you're trying to write a paper, it fills it's good, filler, but yeah, subpar.
yeah, it's bad communication.
Mhm.
And and this guy was claiming that I guess he was claiming that Paul does something like that, and it's like, no. I What I have noticed is that Paul will sometimes in his videos make more sense and insert meaning where the actual video itself did not have. Like Paul, he's this is the shamanistic thing that preachers and ministers are supposed to do, and he's
Mhm.
so good at it. He will take a blob of meaningless words and like give it some meaning and find a pattern in it, right? Which is one of the reasons I love listening to him, and I listen to all his videos, because he will. It's just funny to me when he does that, when he
Yeah.
finds meaning where there was none before Paul got there, right? I'm thinking of a particular video. We won't go there, but yeah. So this guy was claiming that
I mean,
that
you could, like,
Paul.
I'm not averse to,
Oh, no, 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 no. I don't want. I don't want to go there.
go.
Um, but this guy was claiming that Paul says things that don't have real meaning to them, right? And it's like, no, you have it all backwards. You have it completely backwards. And what he was picking up on when he said that we're cultish is that we are kind of a community already. You know, usually on Discord, if I'm gonna log off, I don't say bye. But if I'm gonna log off, well, I mean, I get phone calls like a lot of times when I get phone calls at work calls or whatever, I will, I will, deafen myself or even log off. But um, generally, you feel enough of a connection with the room, and especially with that open studio now. I try to put on my video as much as I can, although it's a little tiny bit annoying having to be video ready. Like, but I guess Paul's kind of trying to get us, that way,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, I,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know
good to
where he
do
got
that.
the idea from.
I think it's a good, piece. I think he said he basically was just watching people, but and then was like, "Oh, this would be cool to, like he said he would be watching, Topher or, Andrea or, Sherry, like, knitting, and he was like, "Okay, we'll just insert that into the, community." Um,
And I think it's done wonders. I think it's actually a great thing. And now people generally, including me, turn our video cameras on more often. And like, last night you had your dog on there, and it's like, it creates bonds between people, like I've asked you what that ladder behind you is for before, right?
Yes, yes.
And like, so it's, yeah, we're it's not real life,
Mhm.
but it's a lot closer with the video to being real life, and for you being a real person, and our relationship being a real, like if I were to see you, walking down the street, I would be like, hey Shane, right?
Yeah,
And we would recognize each other, and
yes.
we would already have a, we wouldn't be strangers anymore.
Mhm.
Like I would feel strange just walking up to you and shaking your hand, because
Right.
like you were a stranger, because you're
Yeah,
not.
that'd be crazy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And I've started doing your yeah thing.
yeah, yeah. I know. I've definitely noticed like certain uh like I can do little like impersonations of people now, and
Really?
oh yeah, yeah. Like um yours is like the whole it's somebody asks something, and it's, well, the thing is, and then whatever the thing is for like for between 5 and 10 minutes, just going off about the whatever ancient book it is. Yeah,
Okay.
it's my JK.
Yeah, I feel bad about that. Like sometimes I don't know, like if people are just being polite and listening to me, because people do ask me about stuff, and like I love talking, obviously.
Yeah.
Um and sometimes, yeah, I wonder, like I try not to annoy people, but
Mhm.
like
Well, I think it's just like, for me, it's just like fitting, like, as long as it's, I mean, one gauge is like, is it interesting for you, or as you're like going into it, like, are you in the like, Peterson talks about like going into the zone, and I think you can like watch people and pick up, but there's less of that through video, maybe.
well, it's a lot better now that it's on video, but I remember back when the Eric Weinstein portal server was Discord server was much more active. We were actually trying to figure out. There were people who were trying to program something where everyone would like be able to signal their how what they felt about where the conversation was. Like, I agree with the person who's talking, I disagree, I'm bored, I find this interesting, right? I guess those were the four things. And then based on the room, there would be background music.
Mhm.
Okay. So like this background music would basically act as a sort of feedback for the person speaking as to how the room is is thinking about what they said. And I thought this was a really great idea. If somebody can program something like that, like everybody in that Discord chat, right? Um, and I guess, I mean, you could do like a four quadrant thing, right? Interesting, boring versus, or I guess interesting, boring versus agree and disagree, and people could move, on the grid,
Right.
more interesting, less interesting, more agree, more disagree, and like based on that, there would be some sort of like audio feedback,
Right.
or maybe even a visual
That'd
feedback, like there could be like a colored screen, right? And I think I think something like that would be great if somebody could do it. I don't have the skills for it, but yeah.
Right, right. I think maybe a it's a quick way you could do that, and I mean, I'm sure it'd be like more interesting, different way. But if everyone, well, it'd have to be in a method you could. Oh, everyone can share their screen. But if instead of so if everyone screen shared and had that like like captured the screen with a color palette and you scroll like to which color you
Yeah.
wanted and different colors we knew indicated uh like a level of interest um
Yeah.
in what was being talked about. You could like oh, red to yellow to green to like from red to blue or something.
Yeah. But I mean, when you're talking with video, you nod your head, you smile, you kind of lean in, you know, uh, and I've started doing Paul's hand gestures. So I've really started doing this whole thing. Um, so yeah, and and I think that like
That makes good memes.
that oh my god, the meme channel,
Yes.
like uh, that's I cannot imagine. And apparently, did you see Paul's daughter for Christmas made him
Yes.
stickers and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't wanna
Like
brag, but that "I'm a cool pastor," that was me, and Andrea likes to take credit for giving me, part of the idea.
yeah, so like I actually
Yes.
would I think if you did like if you did a drawing of PVK, we could get shirts and stuff, and we could be the PV cult
Yeah, 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 yeah. Just
with a
make a
K.
yes. Oh, cult?
Yeah,
I'm trying to
PV cult. Get
yes,
it?
yes, yes. So,
And then people would say that we're white supremacists.
yeah, yeah, and that I mean, if we were, uh okay, so if we were a cult and we called ourselves, it'd be like from the out well, we'd need a compound, and then from the outside, people would be like, um, of course, it'd be like, "Oh, they're white supremacist," or they're yeah, yeah, all that, or, or there yeah, there'd be a whole, like, there'd be a whole it'd actually be interesting to see what people like, uh
What they end up saying, what the criticisms would be.
right, right,
Yeah,
right,
it seems like there are some criticisms that people just throw willy-nilly around,
mhm.
like racist and sexist and that stuff. And like, I mean, I've always been very critical of how people throw these words around. Like 20 years ago, or before you were born, I was I was complaining about how people throw these words around and make them meaningless. And now they they've become meaningless. They really have, which is sad.
Yeah, yeah, and I've tried to, like I mean, like, do you have, would what's an example? Uh, um, I mean, there's a word that is now like I don't know, people say God. Like there's some people who argue that
It's
God
become meaningless.
right, right, right. But I think there's been I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I was just reading something about how God is oh no, it was about being um a term that means everything, but I think it might be able to be applied to God as well. It's just
I,
like such a big concept.
yeah, I actually think being is it may be so I dislike, and as usual everything about like when we talk about God I start thinking in Hebrew, but so people think that the
Who you?
tetragrammaton, right, the holy name, four-letter name of God, we don't say, um that I think like a lot of people think of it as like a proper name, like that's God's proper name, the way Shane is your name, right? And I actually think it has more to do with the word to be in Hebrew. The word to be in Hebrew is kind of strange, and if you look at the tetragrammaton, it's actually like it has those letters in it, and so yeah, I think being might actually be better as a translation. Like most Bible translations will use Lord. Um, some of them will use the J word. I won't say. And uh, and I actually think if I were to do it over again, like if I got to change how we translate that word, I would probably use being instead of the tetragrammaton.
Okay, okay. And the tetragrammaton is that's the word itself.
Yeah, so tetragrammaton literally means four letters, thing of four letters. So tetra is four, gram is to write, I guess. So it that's yeah, it's called the tetragrammaton. It's usually translated in your Bible as they'll do a lot of Bibles will do um, capital Lord, Lord, right? Um, and I guess part of that was because Lord is also four letters, so it
Mm,
like fit. Um,
right.
but yeah, um, yeah. So that's the tetragrammaton. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool. And how's the okay? So, do you want to? How's the Hebrew lessons that you've been uh, doing? So, have you taught Hebrew like before, or just how's that whole deal like coming to?
I've never. I mean, I've certainly taken enough Hebrew classes to know how it's done, even at a very elementary level. Um, so Trey, actually, I mean, he's really, really smart. So he's been picking things up really, really fast, like shockingly fast. And he's already like he's at the point where he reads as well as I would say most most Jews in the United States don't read Hebrew as well as he does.
Man. Well, that and yeah, I think that speaks to like the teacher as well as like the this.
Well, honestly, I mean, we just went through the letters and the vowels and stuff, and like how to read them, and like did some practice,
Mhm.
and we were doing the various constructions and stuff, and like the first one took us hours and hours, right? And by the time we did the seventh construct, Hebrew has seven constructions, and by the time we did the seventh one, he went through it in like 20 minutes, and then we tried the Genesis 1:1 in Hebrew, right? And he was able to read it,
Some
just
people, yeah.
first time. he was able to read it. Like it was a little slow and disjointed, like right, and he had to go syllable by syllable, but he did the whole verse, and that's like over what, two 2 days really,
Yeah.
that
And
I was working with him.
people like that reminds me of like just how people have these skills that they bring, these gifts like to a community, and it's like when those things like I just think those things are like really beautiful, and uh like just when you look at like the, I don't know, the tapestry that people end up making when they're like doing this sort of thing, like a community.
Yeah, and honestly, like I while we were going through it, I was thinking, you know, we've had a lot of discussions. We've spent hours and hours and hours on the Discord. Some of the discussions have been really fruitful, like and some of them have really changed my mind and made me think new things. And some of them are useful for, just making connections for people and kind of, just being a human being in a society. Um, and but like the over the past couple of days, with Trey, I mean, if he decides to keep, reading Hebrew, like that's
Get good at it.
that's made a real change in his life, right? Now Trey can read
Right,
Hebrew.
right, right. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy, man, man. Yeah, yeah. And I've noticed some definite um like changes, like with I definitely have felt more, I think, one like when I see uh tech, like I've become friends with them, or like certain people where it's like, oh, like it's a weird like emotional calm, I guess. It's yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's weird.
You're right. You're right. It's emotionally like we hang out on the Discord, and it's like it's camaraderie, and I don't think you can get that. Like when sh- Sherry comes into the room, or anybody comes into the room, like last night Anthony came into the room really briefly and he left, and I was like, oh, we didn't even say hi to him. I was like, he came and he left, and we didn't even say hi, and then he came back. But I was like, I was about to message him and saying, sorry, I didn't say hi, right? Or like Sherry comes into the room, and of course she's Sherry. And like,
Yeah.
we have to say hi and see, what she's up to, and like if she's, I don't know, building a high rise or something, or
Right, right. What Sherry.
making God knows what from scratch.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
gonna build her own new car from scratch, like start mining the ore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In which way Sherry uh this time?
Yeah.
The adjective Sherry. Um yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. There's so many like uh good, yeah, good people. It's been yeah, it's been something, and like just the like seeing Sherry's skill, like at what I guess people's just like I wouldn't have guessed like that someone had that level of skill,
Yeah, I mean, I knew like my
like with the
grandmother
knitting.
when she was a child. like spun her own thread and like knitted and stuff. Like, but yeah, that was in the old country, and that was years and years ago. And Sherry's today, like, she grows her own co- she grows her own sheep and her own goats, and like shears them and combs out the cashmere
Right.
and cleans it and spins it and like and then knits it, and like she she literally went from grass to a scarf, right? Like, yeah, that's amazing. That's I mean, it's amazing that human beings can do that. It's amazing that one human being can do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I imagine if I was out in the middle of nowhere, I would never be able to make clothes of any type, right? I I do not know how to make clothes. Most people don't know how to make clothes, but it's really to who we are, right?
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's like, um if we were like, all right, let's get on a compound and do this cult, like we would have the we'd have the skill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we would at least have somebody to teach us. Yeah.
Right. And maybe, I mean, maybe that'd be the good that comes from it, right? Is that
Hey,
this
I am all for this compound idea. Like, I would totally like buy a share of the co-op. Like, I could totally like, because honestly, one of the reasons I fled to the Discord is um I want to see people who are trying to make sense of things and not and who are being honest and who are being, who are sincere, and um and you know there's I mean
what's all
I
about.
I don't know what you call it, but the connections that we're making on the Discord are are actual social bonds, right? With each other. We're and we're trying to mm, make sense of things. We're not trying we're having dialogues as opposed to debates, right? We're trying to figure things out together, and we're trying to improve things for all of us.
Right.
And that's that's such a different it's such a completely different mode of operation than any other social media.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think you can do the uplifting thing like through Facebook, or like, or you can like, you can definitely message people, but the degree to which like uh ideas become like inner connected, or there's the social aspect, but it's like, oh, this has to do with um like we're sort of like creating and trying ideas. One person I remember said that it was like oh gosh, um oh, I think it was Topher. He was like, "Oh, it's like almost like a scientific method where like," and I don't know, like I'm trying to figure out like, oh, at what level, like, because I've been using Discord quite a bit, and there's like, okay, this is it's good like to be social, and it's like, is there a well, one question is like, okay, is there like I think there is a limit of use, or you have to like there's some balance that needs to needs to happen, but it's like it's also a very good place to go to. You have your ideas, and you can like bounce them off of people, and then like people try them, and then like it's just a good place to like bounce ideas off of people, like without fear of like judgment. Like I've noticed after being on here and then sharing some of my I like being openly sharing ideas with people uh in real life, it's like, oh, this is like I'm gonna keep sharing uh ideas, but it's not as like, and it might be a temperament thing, but it's not as received, I guess. Um,
Yeah. Well, I think that might have to do with the unique self-selection of people who, decide to join this server, right? I mean, we have the whole avocado meme, with heretics and stuff.
yeah.
Like, um, I think
Someone either you can explain the avocado thing. I don't know exactly.
Sam Adams doesn't like avocados. He also doesn't like ice cream. Like the man is just like completely like
Oh gosh.
how anybody so okay, he doesn't believe in the Trinity, that's one thing, but like how can you not like avocados?
Right. Right, right, right. Yeah.
So that's kind of the joke, because he's like the heretic, right? And um well, me personally, I certainly find the whole not liking avocado thing uh, much more offensive. So yesterday, I was on YouTube. I was watching this. There's this video of a dog that attacks this child, and a cat, and like the family cat comes and like scares the dog away from the child, from the little kid. It was like a 3 or 4 year old kid on a trike. And so I was reading the comments, and people were like, well, I don't understand why anybody can hate on cats. Look at this cat, it heroically saved the child. And my response was, well, I mean, you got to pick a team, right? You're going to be on team cat, or you're going to be on team dog. Like, I I don't actually hate cats, but I like pretending I hate cats, right? And it was the same thing when I was in college, right? We had our crosstown rivalry,
Mhm.
right? So I went to USC and UCLA, right? So we made fun of UCLA. Uh,
As you do.
that was part of the thing. When you go to UCLA, you make fun of USC, and well, the funny thing was like UC. One of the reasons I decided to go to USC was because USC had that like school spirit, and but UCLA didn't. Like it still doesn't. There's, and that's one of the reasons I liked USC better, was at USC people were like hyped up over the rivalry. And it's not like, I know plenty of people who went to UCLA, including very close friends of mine. But just having that type of rivalry, that type of you know joking around. And actually, I was thinking of this. Discord originally started as a way of people
Gamers.
who were playing games, right? Talking to each other.
Mhm.
And I think in a very real sense we've lost, like, now that you play games, like people play, I guess, their friends are somewhat involved in Candy Crush and like those games, but especially I think women don't tend to play games as much as men do. Although, I mean, there were a
Well,
significant number of women who played World of Warcraft when I was playing it, and just playing social games together, um, it creates real connections that I think a lot of us are missing, right?
yeah, yeah, no, I agree. Like it's been like some of my like friends that I play online games with, like that's a genuine connection. Like I and I've even had like dreams of like there's been a couple of dreams of playing games like there was like playing games through Discord. Like I've dreamt that, and I think like that's a yeah, something that might be missing. Yeah, so I agree.
So where are we going now? It's your show.
Um okay, so like okay, we could call it good. Um or here, what time is it? It's 4:43. We've been going like in
We've been going almost an hour.
yeah,
It's
okay.
up to you.
Okay, yeah, we could maybe stop here and then like we could just talk about like if anything like comes to you. I don't know what you're
Well, I mean,
up to tomorrow.
if you wanted to talk, you 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 said you wanted to talk about um what it's like to be Jewish,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And well, the thing is, um,
Okay.
like I thought about it a little bit when you asked that, and I thought, you know, Jordan Peterson says identity is a negotiation between between the individual and society,
Mhm.
right? So, like, you know, so I was thinking, okay, let's talk about some fringe cases of, so I'm Jewish. I say I'm Jewish. People are like, they understand that, and they don't question that. It's true, right? Whatever that means. And as far as we know, you're not Jewish. But how do we know that,
Right, right.
right?
Well, how do we know that if
How do we know you're not Jewish?
like right
Let's
now?
say, yeah,
Um, d do I look like my
you
family
could.
owns a bunch of
I
businesses?
know Jews who look exactly like you.
Okay,
You
okay,
could you could walk into any synagogue, say I'm Jewish, and nobody's gonna say a boo.
okay, okay. So why is that like a problem? You think, or like
No, I don't think it. I mean, it's I want, like, where are the contours of that? Or somebody was telling me that and this apparently has happened a lot recently, right? Where people, grandparents die, as they're dying, they say, yeah, in Europe during World War II, we were Jewish, and we came to the United States and decided not to say anything to anyone. And, now I want you to know, right? And, like, in a similar way as PVK found out his great great grandfather was Jewish, right? But so does that make him Jewish? So is Paul now Jewish because his great grandfather was Jewish, and but he's a Calvinist minister, right? Um, or someone like Andrew Clavin, who was raised Jewish. There's no question about that, but now he's Christian,
Right.
and his son Spencer Clavin, who sometimes shows up on the Discord, right? Uh, so is Andrew Jewish? Is Spencer Jewish? Like, what are the contours of that?
Right.
Because it, I mean, in some sense, it's a religion, or actually, this is an interesting thing that's been happening lately, and it's the first time it's happened in like 2,000 years, but it's been happening lately. There are people who have started believing in Orthodox Judaism, so their religion is Orthodox Judaism, but they're not Jewish. So what is their religion?
Right. Right.
Right? So they're called Noachites, right?
I
So they're not converting to Judaism, but they believe in Judaism.
Okay. Okay. So here's a so they aren't Jewish ethnically, but they
Well,
believe.
even religiously, see, okay, so in Judaism, there's this idea of being a part of the nation of Israel, which, you know, there's a specific covenant at Sinai, and that means certain things, right? So, okay, let's say you decided, and do you know what supersessionism is?
No.
Most people don't. So, supersessionism was really common among Christians until very recently, but now most Christians don't believe in it anymore. But the idea was that after Jesus, the Jews stopped being the Jews, stopped being Israel, right? And the church became Israel. So when the Bible refers to Israel and everything that has to do with Israel, the idea was, okay, now the church, and there are still some supersessionist churches. I think like the Mormons are supersessionist. Like, they believe that they are the Jews now, right? And they actually refer to Jews as Gentiles. So like, when the Chabad rabbi opened up a synagogue in Salt Lake City, there was a newspaper, and he like framed this article. Like, the article's headline was "Gentile Rabbi Opens Synagogue in Salt Lake City," right? because because so there are Christians who were supersessionists. Some still are, right? But let's say you decided, you know what? No, what I am a Jew, right? You just decided by yourself that you're Jewish,
Right.
right?
Right. I've thought about like like can you do that? How much of it is an agreement between the organization and the individual, or
Yeah, it's like, well, would you suddenly be Jewish if you decided you were Jewish, or does the Jewish community have to accept you as a convert? Like, religiously within Judaism, that's what we would say. We would say that, a person can believe in Judaism, but without actually going through a process. But you could say the same thing as about Christianity, right? So, um, as you know, what happens if what happens if somebody decides they're a Christian but doesn't get baptized?
Right, right. And I've like I haven't explicitly called myself a Christian for like I have, but it's like I don't know that I'm like um I think it's a worthy thing. Like I have a relationship with God, right? And it's like I like the cultures and the sentiments and of different like religious uh sects, but I'm like, okay, yeah, if I was like, okay, I'm Jewish now, like how much of it is just owning it and people, I guess, yeah, yeah.
Well,
It's
I mean, were you baptized as a baby?
uh no, I decided they were letting people decide whether they like in the it was like a four square uh uh church, and I did not get baptized.
So you've never been baptized.
No, but I have. Okay, so here's so at the time it was like I did not get baptized, and then and like what is baptism? Like, is there such a thing as like a a relationship with God that's purifying to the point of oh, like is there? I've felt before cleansed in a way that people say who have been baptized, um, like feel, but I haven't like actually been baptized, but like I've had like strong purifying experiences, I guess.
So I don't know if you remember this, but a while back, what happened was there was a Catholic priest who watched a video of his own baptism, and he noticed that the the deacon who was baptizing him said the wrong words. Okay, and it was there on video, and so he asked, like, what does this mean? And the Vatican said it means that you were never baptized, meaning you never became a deacon, meaning you never became a priest. Okay. So he had performed marriages and done things that only a priest can do. So there was somebody on our server who had to get married again, okay,
Mm,
because the priest who married him and his wife had um, had not been baptized properly, okay, and that meant that according to Catholic doctrine, the priest wasn't even Christian, right?
right,
So it, I mean, that is, I, I first of all, I think some people would say that that's a legalism that's like going too far. Um, but I can follow that, right? I can follow those ideas
right,
to the point where you say because 30 years ago somebody, instead of saying I baptize you, said we baptize you, right? That was the difference. He, instead of saying I baptize you, he said we baptize you, and he's supposed to say I baptize you, right? So that one word difference made it so that these people had to get married again,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they weren't married in the
Good.
eyes of the church.
I'm like, good thing I'm not in the Vatican. I would have just looked at it and, good enough.
You know what? I actually, so when I first heard about this, I started thinking what would have happened in an Orthodox Jewish, and I've never heard of anything that legalistic, right? And you know, supposedly Christianity is supposed to be less legalistic than Judaism,
Mhm.
but you know, so I mean, in a sense, their children were if they had children before getting officially married, their children were bastards, right? It's like that's, but at the same time, if you are a Catholic, then or anything, any type of Christian, like right, you have to decide is Sam a Christian or not? He says he's a Christian. He believes he's a Christian, but he's been kicked out of churches, right?
Right.
And well, you've never been baptized,
Right.
so I think a lot of people would say you're not, you, even if you want to call yourself a Christian, they would say you're not a Christian.
Right. Right. And I think there is, so I think there is a balance between institution and individual. But I think it's like, okay, I think if I had a council, if I could choose how it was done for me, or it'd be like, okay, let's get a bunch of people, a bunch of, uh, we'll say Christians, right? Seated around me, baptized Christians, and I get to be able to convince them that I am Christian, and I would either walk out of there, like I think I'd probably walk out of there very, very, uh, like contented and puffed up about my Christianity. Um,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about identity, right? It's, so let's say you were living in on a mountain somewhere. Could you baptize yourself? Could you, like, let's say you're living out on a mountain and you have a Bible and you believe everything the Catholic Church does, right? But you're all alone. There's nobody else to baptize you, right? So would you be able to even become a Christian,
I think okay,
right?
so I think you could, and this is like the idea that I'm. It's like the church is, well, there is the idea that the church is like with you, um, and I think like I don't know that at that point social approval uh would, well, it's like, okay, God knows your heart. Like that's one thing that I like believe. So if you were, could you be, even if you weren't institutionally, I think you could be. And that's I'm going to say that and then like think about it.
Have you heard of Edgardo Mortara?
No.
So Steven Spielberg is actually making a movie about this right now, and it's supposed to come out. Um, I think they were shooting it right before Corona came up. So,
Mm,
but he's making a movie about it, and this
You
happened
can I
under.
ask you, do you have a favorite Christian movie? Or a favorite, we'll say, well, yeah, I'll just ask you if you have a favorite Christian movie, but I meant like religious um,
Huh.
movie.
Well, I guess Ben-Hur is kind of a Christian movie. Um, yeah, I guess Ben-Hur is kind of a Christian movie. Jesus kind of shows up in there at the end.
Okay, okay, yeah, I'm
Um,
really interested. Like,
yeah, you've never seen Ben-Hur?
no,
Oh my God, it's a
no,
classic. Like
okay,
everybody's seen Ben-Hur. You have to see Charlton Heston. Yeah,
all right,
yeah. You have to see Ben-Hur. It's like it back when we had television, everybody saw it. When it showed up on TV. Or I think
good
it.
stuff.
I think it's even a Christmas. Like it's kind of a Christmas movie. I think it is. Yeah. So back to Edgardo Mortara.
All right,
So this
um,
actually, like the same thing happened more than once, but this became really famous and it became an international incident. Um, so Edgardo Mortara was this. He was the one of the children of a Jewish family living in Italy back when um, there were the papal states. So the Pope was actually kind of like king of some area, right? And uh, people who were living in the papal states, like there were, it wasn't just the Vatican, it was like much. And there were Jews who were living there, and Edgardo Martara's family lived there. And Edgardo was, as a baby, became really sick, and the doctors thought he was going to die. And he had a nanny, and the nanny was afraid he was going to go to hell because he was Jewish. So she baptized him. Okay. And then but he got better. And then when he was 6 years old, the church found out that he had been baptized, and they sent the papal guards to come and take Edgardo away because, having been baptized, he was now a Christian child and he couldn't be raised by Jews. So they just took this 6-year-old kid from his parents, and like this had happened several times, but this time, like Edgardo's family was wealthy enough and well known enough that like they started telling people, and in order to try to put pressure on the Pope to give the kid back, right? And it became an international story, and like Protestant people who were like who were against the Pope, and Italian nationalists who didn't like the papal states and stuff, they caught on to it, and it became um, a huge international thing. And so the Pope basically this was Pope Pius IX. He decided, no, we're keeping this child, and it's it became a huge thing, and ultimately the papal states like ended up being taken away from the Vatican and the Pope, partially because people were like, no, this is barbaric. You can't just take people's children, all right? And like there's so many questions there because like Protestants baptize their children, right? And they're not raising. So there were Protestants living in the Papal States who had who were raising Christian children because Catholics think they believe that um, they believe that the children they believe that baptism is valid even if it's done by somebody who, like that nanny who baptized Edgardo, right? Like anybody can baptize. And so there were all these Protestant children who were baptized, and they were just as Christian as Edgardo was, but and they were being raised as Protestants. They were being raised against everything, against Catholicism. So why was it the policy to take Jewish children away from their Jewish parents, but not to take
Hello.
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I did, yeah, so the question became why it was the policy, to take the Jewish children away, but not to take the Protestant children away, right? And honestly, for me, like part of it was you can describe things, and this goes all the way back to what we were talking about, left brain, right brain. You can describe things in, manner, like, and rationalize it linguistically. But when you imagine the picture of sending like guards or soldiers into a person's home to take their child, right? Like that picture, if you draw that picture, everybody's going to look at it and say, this is just wrong. Like, you're taking a child from his mother. Like, this is the most unchristian thing, in my opinion. The idea, like, imagine one of the pictures of with a 6-year-old Jesus, and somebody comes to take the child away, right? Just picture. And people still argue. So there were recently people were writing articles because the whole Edgardo Mortara thing has come up again. People were writing articles defending what was done, right? And I think you can do those in words, but I think part of what makes movies and pictures, right? I don't think you can that picture in a way that the soldiers look like good people, right?
Right, right,
I,
right.
I,
Unless you're doing that weird backwards thing where it's like, oh, they're bringing him in the house, but that's just maybe being childish.
they're bringing him back to his mom.
Right. What?
Right.
Yeah. Great guys.
Yeah, I guess. Well, there is that thing. I guess you could make a picture. You could draw that picture, and it would be like somebody could see it as, oh, they must be bringing the child back, as opposed to taking the child away.
Right, right. And she's yeah, she's elated. The right, right, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but then you couldn't draw that picture, right? You can't draw a picture that can be seen both ways, because the mother, like, you have to have the picture of the mother, right? You have to
Right.
you have so this is part of the thing with a picture. it has to be, it has to be complete in a way that, you can't. Yeah, you're the artist. Like, do you think you could draw a picture that the same person could look at it, right? One person could look at it and say, okay, this is this is one thing, like, right, the mother, like, the guards are the good people and the mother is happy. Or could you, and someone could look at the same picture and say, this this is they're taking the child away and the mother is sad. Like,
Right.
can you draw that picture?
I think only if you could not only if you could get rid of like the emotionality um in in face, or like the example is like or the only reason I thought of that is because my dad, when we were kids, he did that with the damn Build-A-Bear workshop where we were at the mall looking down at that picture of them building the bear. And my
Okay.
dad's like, you could also look at this as like them like
They're
being
tearing the
horrible.
bear
Yes,
apart.
yes, yes, taking his heart, right. All these and uh and that was funny, like as a kid. But that's like the only thing that came to mind as an example. But I mean, people do that with like running movies backwards and uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but that's yeah.
But that is the strength of the visual arts. I think that's why, I'm not an iconoclast. Why I think icons are important is because I think pictures do convey things that in ways that words simply cannot.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's parts of art that like the um I guess like reverence for certain figures, or like if you see um just pictures of Jesus, or like it definitely there's a part of that that um like lifts up your heart, and like it yeah, I think it's lifts up your heart and makes you I guess closer to the ideas, or
Yeah.
I don't yeah.
My whole thing is I think because that picture, like, and I think that's part of, like, going back to the whole Ian McGilchrist thing, right? Where he says talking about things in particular as opposed to seeing the whole picture with the left as opposed to the right brain, right? And, like, I think you can argue left brain for taking away Edgardo Mortara. I've seen
Yep.
people who make arguments.
Yeah,
I
no,
think they're evil arguments.
yeah, as you were saying it, I was like, I like could do that if I detach myself, but that's not who like I like am. Like that's not yeah.
And I think you simply can't do that with the right. You can't do that with a picture. And that's, I think better than an argument about whether it's right. That picture, I think, would horrify any moral person. I think that, the picture of people coming and taking a 6-year-old child from a mother would buy. Like, I guess maybe, I mean, one of the arguments that somebody was making is that, well, we have child protective services take children away from bad parents,
Right.
right? So we do that, right? We send police and stuff into people's homes to take children away, but I mean,
That's
clearly, yeah.
Go ahead. You can finish that point because I was thinking about the art like making a uh yeah, go ahead and finish your point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the context there is that you're taking away the child from a mother who is actually harming the child, right? So, um, you would have to, the child, the yeah, the mother herself would have to be harming the child for that to be like an ethical thing.
Right.
Um, and I mean, honestly, I think
Dude,
that's how the people who were for it viewed it, is like raising a child as a Jew is harmful, right?
right.
That's how they viewed it, which obviously I disagree.
Mhm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. And like okay, so as far as like the all right, so real quick, I don't think you can make that drawing because it's very when you add like you can't have basically like a soldier, a mother running, and a soldier like you're conveying one meaning or another by like small subtle like uh things like that. That was the um, one point I wanted to make on the art. Um, like if you were to say like that's the reason it's humorous, pointing it like uh, oh, instead of putting the bear together, they're taking it apart because the meaning is pretty obvious.
Yeah, and actually, you bring up a really strong point, because one of the things that now I forget his name, the guy who came up with Titania McGrath. Do you know Titania McGrath?
I don't.
It's a parody it's a parody Twitter account. You should definitely look it up. It's hilarious. And I think his name is Doyle, something Doyle.
Okay.
Um, and he came up with it, and he's really hilarious, and he critiques social justice and stuff. And one of the things he says is that, and I agree with, is that one of the best ways of ridiculing the the social justice craziness is through laughter, because people can't help but to find something absurd and start laughing, right? It's an involuntary response, right? And
Sure.
that that sense of the absurd, right, which you do which shows up in something that's just really funny to you, that so much so that you can't stop yourself from laughing, right? Yeah, I'm sure you've had the experience. I was in I was in jury duty, and they were asking the jurors questions before we were impaneled,
Mhm.
and one of the people just said the most funniest thing, and I was just sitting there in the middle of the court in the jury box, and I was just like, couldn't stop myself from laughing. and I did my best to make it like I was coughing, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I couldn't stop myself. So
yeah.
like that, that's that ability to sense the absurd, I think is really important in sense making, right? And like it communicates to something to the people around you, right? And maybe that's why, you know, these people are so anti-comedian, right? They can be so um so opposed to, you know, just comedy, right? Just making fun, making jokes,
Right.
right? Like, ha- have you seen The Producers?
Um, no, no.
Dude, where who educated you?
Right,
Um,
right, right.
so the
I mean,
producers
my
is
dad mostly, but
it's I blame your father a lot for everybody needs to see the producers. So it's a Mel Brooks movie. Do you know about Mel Brooks?
oh yeah, yeah. My dad. Okay, so he did a partial job. So I think yeah, my dad and my friend showed me most movies, but it was I saw some Mel Brooks stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so History of the World Part 1 is hilarious.
Mm,
Recommend it. And the producers is also hilarious, and it makes fun of Nazis, right? And it's really hilarious. Like there's this
yeah.
thing, Springtime for Hitler. Look up Springtime for Hitler. It's hilarious. You should watch it.
Gosh.
It's like the funniest thing. And nowadays, I don't think you could even make that movie. I really don't. And apparently, so, like I saw somebody had tried to stage because it's a play. Somebody had tried to stage the play, and and like people had gotten offended, or like at the producers, which is like it's really funny. It's really really funny. It's one of the best movies ever made,
Okay.
and there are some sequences that are just really hilarious. You know what we should have we should have a server movie night. That's what we should have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've thought about that. I've talked about it. Yeah.
Were, were you there when we watched The Big Lebowski?
I stopped in for a second. Me and my cousin like built some crazy uh uh like blanket for it, and we were watching it. I don't know. I turned on the camera for a second, but yeah, I saw that you guys did.
Yeah, The Big Lebowski. I had forgotten how good that movie is. Yeah,
Yeah.
but but yeah, History of the World Part 1 is really hilarious too. I really love that movie.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and so nowadays you couldn't even make the producers, right? You're not even allowed to make fun of, like, you heard about Marcus Meekin, Count Dankula, um and his Nazi pug. This
Oh
was
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not that
So he
uncultured.
he actually got fined for that. Like they took him to court and they fined him for making fun of Nazis.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's crazy.
For making fun of Nazis
Well, apparently
or for
they
hate.
were they the judge, being as idiotic as he was like, no, this is offensive to Jews, and like they found some Jew somewhere who was offended apparently and claimed to be offended, and it's like they had to go find somebody to be offended. Like when I saw the video, I thought it was hilarious.
Right.
And I think everybody with any sense thinks it's hilarious,
Hmm.
and like, but they found somebody to go testify and say that he was offended,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
and it's like,
I definitely like you can take devil's advocate position on that, and it's where like the devil's advocate position is the one that's offended at a Nazi pug. But you can yeah. But it's like that. Yeah, people know though what's like reasonable for the
They
most.
should, you would think they did, but
Mhm.
the judge obviously didn't, you know? And it was ridiculous. It's still ridiculous to me, right? And I I don't want to live in that world. Like, thank God for the First Amendment, um, but I couldn't live in a country where that was like considered okay. Like, how is that considered okay? Right? It was obviously a joke. It was hilarious. And yeah. And people who can't take jokes, they're I'm sure you haven't heard of Victor Borga, have you?
No.
He was he's also hilarious. His stuff is on YouTube. Uh I don't know if you would get all of it, but you would get a lot of it. Like, I think some of it has gone, but like when I was growing up, he was one of the great comedians, and he works very clean. Like, pretty everything's pretty clean, and he he's like a world class pianist. So like he does a lot of piano jokes, and like he does musical jokes. He's great. Victor Borga, highly recommend him.
Okay.
But he came to the United States be from, I think, Sweden. He was from, no, the Netherlands. He was from Copenhagen.
Do you
And
know? Do you know? Oh wait, not Bo Burnham. I don't know if it's anything. Yeah, yeah. He does like comedy that's very entertaining or like uh piano uh stuff.
I I don't. I'll have to look him up. But
Okay.
do look up Victor Borga. And so he was Jewish, and during World War II, like as the Nazis were gaining power, he was making fun of the Nazis. Like, he started making all kinds of jokes, and he had to leave, come to the United States because of that. Um, and one of the things, like, I watched an interview with him, which was really interesting. And one of the things he said is, you can't be a tyrant and allow laughter, right? You can't be a tyrant. One of the signs that this is tyranny is that
People
people
stop.
are afraid to make jokes. People are afraid to laugh, and you you get offended at jokes at your expense. If you can't laugh at yourself, right? If you can't laugh at yourself, there's something wrong there.
Right. And I think it is like a like okay, so just like on the personal like conduct thing, I think yeah, in relationships like and I think this is more like well, in personal relationships, interpersonal relationships, it's like if the joke is like reasonably like placed or like it's like you know uh sharp, it's like people understand the like the lines, I guess. And if you're like really good friends with somebody, it's like okay, once in a while like going over the line, like if the joke uh lands, it's um
And you have to be able to make bad jokes. That's the thing. Like, you have to be able to make a joke that if you never go over the line, then you're playing it too safe.
right. And that also like it becomes like the okay, so you're gonna be telling uh jokes, and then like if you have like I guess like a humorous relationship, it's like, oh, then when you tell a bad joke, I get to like I guess uh d- uh, almost like get back at you for
Yeah, by joke.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, yeah, I'm really interested in like the I guess like the microcosm of like, so there's the societal level of these things being like taken uh too seriously, and then like how that, I guess, how you uh deal with that on the interpersonal level.
Well, we're approaching 2 hours,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
I was gonna say
I
the
actually, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I would like love to have you on again. Like we'll turn this over.
We'll have to watch Ben-Hur, The Producers, History of the World Part One. Oh, and you have to check out Titania and McGrath,
Okay,
and then discussion.
okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it's good to trying to figure things out, and I'm like looking forward to it.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Jacob.
I am going to go grab some dinner.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
it was a really interesting discussion.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I'll like send it to you as soon as it's posted.
It's okay. You can just put it up. That's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry. Yeah.
okay, coolio.
Cool. I will talk to you later, sir.
All right.